Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. So hello everyone. Thanks for joining us again for another session today. This is our weekend talk for the day. The topic is designing avatars for VR series games. I hope you're all staying safe and we'll get to meet you here in person over there. So yes, I'll start off by introducing myself real quick. So I'm Anthony Demanuele. I'm the director at Flying Squirrel Games. And yes, the title of our presentation is, like we said, designing avatars for VR series games. A bit of background about me. So I graduated in 2010. I've been working in the games industry for about 10 years now. Started off working on passion projects at first, which then led to opening up my own game studio after working in several other studios before, of course. Our studio is called Flying Squirrel Games. We're based in Malta. It's, for those of you who are not familiar, Malta is a tiny island under Sicily, south of the Mediterranean and the Mediterranean Sea. The studio was established in 2015, and since then we've released many games, over 15 titles of different genres, from kids games to educational games, some racing titles, real-time strategy. So we've done quite a number of games. We try to do all of this in-house, so we're a multidisciplinary team. Starting off with with an idea, building the game design document, and then concept art, developing the actual game, going through lots of iterations until we end up with a product that we're happy with. We test it out on the market, publish it, and keep it alive as much as we can. We'll just go quickly through some of the games that we've worked on in the past to give you an idea of what we've been doing. So Nothing to Declare is a game that we built for the customs department. It's a game that is mostly available throughout Europe, even localized in most languages as well. It's about the work done by the customs department, whether it's they're stopping you at the airport or dealing with your packages, and trying to show the work that they do, that they're not really the bad guys, and trying to showcase the importance of their work. So we can say this is one type of a series game. We'll go through that together in a bit. Paperclip is a marriage game about the story of Kyle MacDonald. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's a Canadian guy who didn't really want to work much. The story happened about 20 years ago, and he still wanted to provide for his family. So he said, okay, what if I go back and trade things instead of working for money? So he started off with a simple paperclip and traded it along the way to eventually get a house. So from a simple paperclip, he ended up with a house in Canada. If you don't know the story, I'd highly encourage you to read the book or even play the game to get an idea of that, how he got there. Forged in Fire is a game we did for the History Channel, for the show with the same name. We do a lot of racing games as well, multiplayer racing games. The first one is in 2015, they're checking sprint cars in 2017, and the last one they're checking into in 2019. All of these games are available on the Nintendo Switch and stores. But let's talk a little bit about why we're here. So we're here representing the PrimeVR project. It's a Horizon EU-funded project where we're using virtual reality to aid rehabilitation. We're focusing on three types of therapies right now: patients who had an injury in sports, patients who had a stroke, after stroke, so they had a stroke, and we know that there's a lot of rehabilitation that needs to happen over there to get back to their daily activities. So we try to help those patients and patients with dystonia as well. It's a 3-year-long project, and we have consortium members from all over Europe, starting off with universities, SMEs, and hospitals. I'll just brief you quickly about the project itself, so you get an idea of when we're talking about designing avatars for VR games, our takeaways about our project right now. But then we can extrapolate for other use cases as well, of course. So in this project, we're building this platform where we combine therapists and patients together in order for them to use games for their rehabilitation using customized controllers. So without going into a lot of detail, because we cannot share that much, I'll just try and be very brief about this. So therapists would see a list of games that is available to them on the platform, and they would assign one or more of these games to a patient, and they can customize all of these as well, configure them in a way to make the games really customized for each patient, whether it's difficulty or other properties that you can change for each game, like frequency as well. So a lot of these properties to make the game best applicable to that patient. And these can change over time. So once a patient has made progress, we can increase their difficulty and so on. What we mean by bespoke controllers, so we're not using off-the-shelf traditional VR controllers, but we're building our own controllers for each use case, whether it's a stroke patient or a patient who has a sports injury. So each of these patient groups have their own customized controllers, and we're building an array of games with the scope of rehabilitating different muscles or actions that you would need to do in real life. So back to our title of the presentation, it is about designing avatars for VR series games. So the plan for us today is to break this into at least 2 or 3 sections. First, we'll talk about series games, VR games, and avatars. Avatars in traditional games, avatars in VR, and then avatars for rehabilitation. So hopefully that will conclude this short session together with getting an understanding of all the different areas of avatars and how they're used in different games and what we do differently when it comes to rehabilitation. Let's start off with series games. So series games are not new, so they've been around for a very long time. They weren't always called that, but they've been around for a very long time. The oldest game that we could find, which you could say is a series game, because of its serious nature, is about battle strategy. 300 or 400 years ago, they would play around with rocks to simulate battles and try to come up with the best plan of action. So while it is a game, because there's no harm done whether you win or lose, it is definitely of a serious nature. And when we say serious, it doesn't mean boring. It has to be still be fun in most cases if you want to keep whoever is using them engaged and in these sessions. So the term serious game, what we mean by that is most games are just built for fun or entertainment. A serious game is one which has a learning outcome. You get something out of it. Whether it's you're learning a particular topic, or in this case, the example was war strategies. In this case of Oregon Trail, you're learning about history, you're learning about strategy. There are various outcomes that you can think of get from a game. In our case, in the PrimeVR project, our learning outcome is the rehabilitation. We want our patients, yes, to be entertained and engaged with the content that we provide, but at the end of the day, we need them to be rehabilitated better or faster or both. And we know that games provide, by default, they provide higher engagement and motivation. If you have kids, you know that it's so hard to get kids away from games. So why not use these to our advantage? Games also provide non-linear teaching, so there's no just one way of teaching books like we do in traditional schools, where you get a textbook and starts on the first page and you have to go through it till the end. Games are not like that. You can learn different aspects as you go along. And that's actually something that goes along with that is the emergent gameplay. So if we just have to mention one game, like Minecraft and other sandbox games, there's many of these games, players tend to come up with their own games within that environment, which obviously helps them learn different things. Like we said, so this is not a niche market. Serious games, in our case, we're using games for rehabilitation, but they are used in many different scenarios. We'll just mention 3 games to give you an idea of the potential of serious games. Microsoft Flight Simulator So this is like the title says, it is a simulator in a way to fly civil aircraft. There's no combat flight experiences like you can get from some other games, but this is a simulator. You get the real deal trying to fly a plane from one place to the other. Another game of a different nature, a force more powerful. Most games, when you mention games to some people, they always think about like shooting games. You get to kill other players and so on. In this case, it's the opposite. In a force more powerful, your goal is to orchestrate a non-violent campaign to topple regimes, dictators, and so on, without using any violence. So that is the core of the game. There's no shooting, getting of that sort. It's all about changing policies and things like that. And the last one, again, all of these, as you can see, they are of very different nature from one another. World Without Oil is another simulator, to call it that, where to help players understand the world if we end up without oil. So let's experience this before it really happens, whether it's because of climate change, lack of resources, and whatever. Like the game goes into a lot of different scenarios that you need to cater for and handle. And finally, just to see the power of games, here I'll just show you two images side by side. One of them is the periodic table. We've all studied chemistry, or at least know about the periodic table at a point in our lives, and it's very hard to remember some or all of the elements of the periodic table. Whereas the one on the right, you get to see the one, be able to do that by heart with and study. Why? Because the way taught to them, they learned to learn this through game experience. So there's a lot of potential when it comes to games in general, and especially VR games because of their immersive nature. 3D environments are becoming very complex. If you watch any movies that are not shot in real life, like CG movies, you get to see how complex and realistic they are. But when comparing a game versus a movie is just linear. There's nothing you can do when watching a movie. It's whatever the director decides to show you, and that is it. In a game, if you have freedom of movement, you can look around, you can walk around, you can experience different things. You can also interact with some of the objects or most of the objects in the game, which makes it way more immersive than just watching a movie. And how do we interact with other players or objects in the world? We do this through our character, our avatar. So what is an avatar? So the avatar is how we represent ourselves in the game, or in this case, the VR world. So some games, you can think of your avatar in different ways. We tend to think of avatars as humanoid, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can be a character. You can be, if it's a racing game, your avatar in this case is the car that you're driving. That represents you. So this serves as a focal point for communication in the game or in the VR world. The beauty of this is that it helps remove the constraints imposed by society. What we mean by this is whether you're customizing your character to make it look the way you want it, or even if there's no option like that provided in the game, everyone can feel the way they really are in the game experience. And it also allows the players to selectively choose what to disclose. So if you don't want to say something about, show something about yourself, you can easily change that, whether it's related to sexuality or race or even abilities. All characters will have similar abilities, whether they can walk, run, carry things, throw away stuff. You can disclose and you have the same abilities as everyone else. This leads us to customization. So through most games would provide this ability to where they allow you to customize the way you look in games, the way you want them to. This makes you feel more connected to the game, even if the character in game doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like you. Players tend to spend hours customizing their characters. Some would go a lot of details to make them look like themselves, or you can make them look like VIPs. They don't necessarily have to look like real life scenarios. In Black Desert Online, all the characters look like manga, but still, all the options that are available out there, you can make the characters look in any way you want them to look. In Sims, it's kind of different. You get your characters very human-like, like we do in real life. This is very common in RPGs and simulator games. Again, we see a lot of variances when it comes to avatar customizations. If you look at the Nintendo Mii's, they're highly stylized, don't look like those at all in real life, but this is how they did it in their environment, so they feel right in that environment. Whereas in some other games, we tend to go with a realistic nature, where you can change the shape of your nose, the facial hair, the size of your eyes, the shape, facial hair, all of these in-depth changes to make the character really look and feel the way you want them to. It is obviously very important to ensure that there's a cohesion between the environment and the characters. So when you're designing avatars, they need to be in line with what your environment feels as well. So you can easily imagine those characters from Nintendo. The Mii's will not fit in many other games. Everything has to fit the same style. Now, how does this change in VR games? In VR, it is slightly different. Most of us know about first person and third person views. In first person, you're just seeing the world through your eyes. In third person, you're seeing yourself, like you're seeing the full character away from you, detached. First person is way more immersive because you just feel that you're there, but you don't get to see yourself like we do in real life. Most of the time, we don't get to see our full bodies. You just get to see maybe your hands and your legs and so on. So in most VR games, we can see Half-Life Alyx, for example. There, you just get to see your glove and your hands with all their abilities, but that's the only part that you get to see from your body. In demos, so some games still tend to go with a third-person view, where you get to play as the mouse, so that's your avatar, which is far away from you, a bit detached. There's no attachment like you get in first-person games. So this tends to be a bit uncommon for various reasons. Even you can get nausea and you feel this detachment, and they're obviously less immersive when compared to first-person games. Closing off, we can start thinking about, okay, how do we go about building avatars for VR games? Now we're always getting closer to what we're doing for this project. So we tend to use mostly first-person representation, and in our case, having full body representation is not necessary, and it is not important. In our project, we focus on the upper limbs when it comes to rehabilitation. So as long as we show that as accurately as possible with all the parameters, whether it's length, skin tone, and all of that, that is enough. That should be the focus. In our case, we're obviously talking about the upper limbs, but if you're doing maybe a kicking game or any type of game, maybe you need to show the appropriate parts in that case. So if you need to show your legs, you need to make sure that there's correct representation of that in your environment, tracking as well, to avoid any issues that would come up with that. So to really conclude this short talk, full avatar representation, we don't feel that it is necessary to show it in single player VR experiences. So if you are doing a multiplayer experience in VR, then that opens a whole new can of worms, of course, because then you can still have customizations because other players will still be able to see you. But if it is a single player experience, the most important part would be to show the parts that are necessary for your game. What is necessary is best decided by by your requirements. So whether if it's a football game, the legs are obviously very important. In our case, because it's a rehab game for the upper limbs, then obviously the hands and arms are the most important. With an USDKs like the ones from Oculus and so on, you can even go in detail to show your fingers, finger movement. So it depends on the use case that you have. You can. What we would like to say about as conclusions, it is obviously very important to accurately show any of these, whatever you're tracking, as accurately as possible in the VR environment. This would make sure that you have a cohesive environment, so the environment looks similar to your avatars, and the movement represents what you're doing in real life in the virtual environment. So that would give you a whole cohesive. So thank you for your attention. I'll be right here, so if anyone has questions, feel free to just ask now or just comment up privately. Thank you so much.
Yes, Anthony.
Yes, go ahead.
In terms of like your Prime VR, since this is main focus would be for the therapy and such like that, is avatar customization for the patients and such going to be one of the main aspects you're going to want to include?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't really get the question.
Well, I'm saying in terms of like the therapy, and as you were saying that with avatars, you can basically be what you want to be or be able to, show things you want to show that you may not be able to do or look like and such in real world. With the therapy, that, I would say that could be a possible, aspect to it. So my question was the Prime VR 2, is the avatar customization a major part of that platform in the sense of using it for therapy purposes?
Very good. Okay, now I understand. Thank you so much. So no, we are building a single player experience for the most part. So customization is not part of it. What we're saying, so we can think about customization in a different way. So we're not doing customization when it comes to skin tone and changing the size of your shape of your nose and any of those features. We're not doing any of that. What we're doing customization as part of the project, and I would highly encourage you to go to our website, and we have videos of this over there. That's PrimeVR2.eu. So we're scanning the arms. So we're building a separate scanner. We're scanning the arms so we can showcase that within the game. So this would be your real hand with the exact measurements from your wrist to your elbow, all of the dimensions that you can think of when 3D scanning your arm. So our interpretation of customization is a bit different than traditional games, but again, obviously we're doing it as part of rehabilitation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
About, first of all, thank you for your presentation. About the feedback from the target users that we have so far on the avatar per se, did we have any?
So not really. We cannot really share much of that here yet. But like in reality, we don't have much feedback yet. We're still obviously going through a lot of iterations to come up with to scan users and put them into the game. So it's still early days for this. We have all that process in place, but we still need to get to that feedback loop in order to optimize.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if there are no further questions, I'll stick around here. So if anyone wants to have a private chat, feel free to pop by. Thank you.